The following is a presentation of the Healthcare Facilities Network. Hello, and welcome to the Healthcare Facilities Network. Thanks for clicking on this video. I'm Peter Martin, the president of Gosselin Martin Associates. I am joined today by my special guest, Jeff Henne. Jeff is the Corporate Safety and Emergency Manager for the University of Pennsylvania Healthcare System in Philadelphia. Jeff has been with the system for more than 11 years now, and he's been involved in healthcare safety in various capacities for more than 20 years. Jeff, and this is part of the discussion we're going to have today, Jeff was also ASHE President during the COVID-impacted year of 2020. Who could forget? Jeff is also a candidate for this year's ASHE presidential race, running again. Voting on that is scheduled to begin. Jeff, that's scheduled to begin in August and then run into September, the voting for the president.
Yep, they'll be able to vote at the ASHE conference.
So a little plug, if you are at the ASHE Annual this year, we will have booth number 438 on the floor. So stop by and please say hello. But Jeff, welcome to the Healthcare Facilities Network.
Thank you. Good morning, Peter. Thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure
now,
to be here.
Jeff, I didn't include the entirety of your bio in here. I think it's always easier just to talk to somebody, but you are also heavily involved with the Delaware Valley Healthcare Engineers. You have your safety certifications. You're well involved in the industry with ASHE locally, nationally. Tell us kind of, if you will, a little bit about, what you do both at Penn, but then also on kind of on the national and local level.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. So, like Peter said, I have well over 20 some years in healthcare safety with not just healthcare, but process safety in the gas industry. That's where I originally started Airco VOC Gases as a regional safety manager nationally for the country. And it was a great experience. A lot of travel, meeting great people along the lines throughout the whole country, supporting our national company and our distributors, and grew out of that and wanted to stay in safety and loved it and finally found a passion and wanted the healthcare to kind of grow even further, because in healthcare you can defibrillate, either go back into the general industry or you could actually go into pharmaceutical if you wanted to, because there's a lot of crossover in both capacities. And started after I left the OC Gases, went to Thomas Jefferson University Health System as a safety coordinator, and left there and went to Fox Chase Cancer Center. So I was at Jefferson about 4 years, Fox Chase for about 11, and then as a safety coordinator, assistant manager there for years. A lot of great experience with lab and healthcare, daycares, and so forth. So it was kind of like the gambit of safety. And then left there and then went to, obviously Penn Medicine, at the hospital I'm at now for just almost 12 years now. Heavily involved. My passion is, safety, helping people, helping our patients, making sure our staff are comfortable, a fun environment too, safe, but also at the same time helping out our local chapters. Heavily involved with all of our Mid-Atlantic region, New York, up to Boston, help out a lot of trying to be more of like a wealth of knowledge for folks, just because of learning over the years is like the boots on the ground, going to different chapter meetings throughout the country, learning, assimilating, meeting folks, taking ideas, bringing it back, always trying to tweak things for our leadership core here for our chapter, to help us support the Cass chapter, Chesapeake, the North and South Jersey, or Harrisburg chapters. Try to pass on knowledge, to other groups. That way, the continuity is still there for tradition, learning your way through the chapter leadership, and being involved nationally with ASHE. That's the growth of those who choose it, and it's great for your career. I'm very blessed to be part of the ASHE family. I say that a lot when I was, ASHE president back in 2020. It is a family, and it's meeting people like Peter and Jack over the years, working on the committees. I never would have met them if I was involved in ASHE, and supporting everyone as much as we can, connecting people through networking, through social events, training, helping out our social business partners, our vendors are a key part of our lives, with all of our chapters support locally and nationally. So meeting a lot of great folks over the years has blessed me to where I'm at today, able to do what I'm able to do, to grow as a person, but also to kind of give back at the same time.
Does that come naturally to you, Jeff? The kind of expanding your role and reaching out to all these folks. Have you always been like that, or did you kind of transition when you moved into healthcare 20 years ago? Tell me a little about how'd you get involved as much as you are?
I relate back to my father. I love my father's traits. A lot of my dad's friends tell me. God bless him. He's not around today, but a lot of people say I have this demeanor, this charismatic way of. I always tend to look at things outside in. I don't really tend to look at me sometimes. I always think about the end user when I look at things. Policy, procedures, training, workflows, all sorts of stuff. It's different and unique, I think, as far as and how to just basically talk normal to the workers. Anyone could sit there and throw a book or a procedure at somebody or a training program, say, all right, here, do this, and I'll be back X, Y, Z time. But you have to kind of sit there. I learned very young, working at the plants, working alongside the workers. If you want to get things done properly and learn at the same time and get their respect, is you're going to have to get dirty once in a while. You're going to have to help clean up some yucky stuff or some nasty chemical spills or go on some heights, to look at things properly. And try to be like, I always talk this one phrase, the jack of all trades of safety.
Yeah.
That is a huge term, I think, anymore in this day and age, considering the workforce is depleted. There's not a lot of people in the safety emergency management world. You don't have to be a master of everything. You just got to know enough where you can always reach out to key contacts. And ASHE World is a key contact for that piece. There's almost 13,000 members nationally. And, I always direct people to use a lot of the ASHE tools to help those who might need a code reference, training program, policy. Someone's already done it. You just have to reach out to folks that, instead of reinventing the wheel, it's already done. We're in hovercraft mode now. If you want to call it. Kind of like Back to the Future 2 when he has the hoverboard. It's already invented. Just have to figure out how to get to that piece.
Yeah. I like that term you said, talk normal. That could almost be, if you talk about keys to success, right up at the top, talk normal.
Yeah, even if you talk to the C-suite, all the way down to our EBS worker or boiler plant guys or nutrition dietetic worker, I treat everybody the same way, talk everybody the same way. I don't tend to blow smoke or try to sugarcoat things.
Yep.
In my world, you have to have like a calm, cool demeanor, especially in the emergency management world. When things start to hit the fan, people tend to look to you or her as a beacon of light. I think COVID was a good way for people to excel internally, externally. If you're an introvert or extrovert, no matter what you are, I think it was a great way of those to shine light, onto that world, to be a beacon of light for so many, and to relax people where tensions were high, emotions were high. There's a lot of unknowns at the time, and how to put a lot of little micro fires out. Where it was like jump firefighters, like forest fires, jumping out of planes, trying to put things out and try to keep moving, to keep the ball moving at the hospitals. So.
Yeah. What is it like, Jeff? You're in a big city, Philadelphia. Things happen. What is it like day to day? I mean, a couple of weeks ago, you had a section of Route 95 that completely collapsed. You've got issues of a big city. You have the Eagles fans rioting when they win a championship. You got all of that, and you're right in the epicenter. What are some of the challenges working in a major hospital for a great system in a big city in the Northeast?
That's a great question. Our footprint is big. I think where I am blessed with, we have so many great friends and contacts in all the hospitals. I think we're a little bit unique for the rest of the country sometimes. We have such a high concentrated next to New York, Chicago, and a little bit of downtown LA. We had such a high and even Boston too, a high concentrate of hospitals. All of us have worked together for so many years. Our communication key is very good.
Mm.
The network we have, and it's a huge piece where we have special teams developed over the years where some of us, if something happened in another facility, we call them HIS teams, which is hospital incident support teams. There's about 8 of us that we can go around.
So that was his Jeff, his teams?
HIST.
HIST.
It's a little unique compared to other facilities. I don't care what bad you are or what facility you are or what hospital. We're here to help.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll come in and help run your command center. We'll help take notes. We'll help enter patient data in. We've done it quite a few times over the years as a region when we had the Amtrak derailment. We've had some other major events.
That's right. Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff. Communication is key, and being open and have that flow of communication, not just to us, but pass that information on to our work coworkers. When the 95 happened, and then we had a lot of flooding with a couple of rainstorms lately, some road closures, as well as some heavy traffic construction right now because it's summertime.
Yeah.
In the University City, there's a lot of construction going on with not just us, but a lot of other local partners. Sending out information to our patients and staff to let them know ahead of time that, hey, hour might not be enough for you to leave for work. You might need to leave 2 hours now, just because of congestion. You gotta love PennDOT and some other local. It's that summertime construction. Always say the state flower is the national cone, or the state tree, that orange cone you see. But anyway, a communication.
I like that.
For us. So
yeah, that's good. That's true there. The annual was up here in Boston last year, and
great time.
Yeah, it was. And this year they've got the Sumner Tunnel, talking about construction during the summer. They've got the Sumner Tunnel, which is one of the old ways into Logan Airport, shut down.
Yep.
And shut down for 2 months. So if anybody's flying into Boston in and around for the next 2 months, it's going to be a pain in the neck. But I like that the orange cone is the state tree. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I was up there when they had the big going on, doing work in Boston.
Oh, you were? With the gas company at the time.
Yep. Yeah. So I saw most of that being constructed at that time.
It's pretty, you think back to that. I mean, what it looked like before, and granted, they went well over budget. It's operational. It's still, I mean, it's better than it was, but you think what it looked like there, a pretty unbelievable engineering feat. Could have been done a little bit differently, but you got the government involved. You weren't working on that project at the time.
No.
You were just up in the area.
Yeah. But knowing what they built, where the convention center was at the conference, and what I saw 10 years before that, was amazing to me. Yes. The right leaders involved, and the right players to build a beautiful section of the city.
Yeah, that whole area was completely underutilized, and now it's So let's talk a little bit, Jeff, about your thoughts relative to the presidential race, running for it again. Was it a tough decision for you so you served in the COVID impacted year of 2020, and I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, but was it a difficult decision for you to say, hey, I'd like to run again, and this is why?
No, it was pretty easy. One, I was trying to support ASHE as much as I can. And I think having at least 2 or 3 candidates is a good way to help split up. Have enough people running is a good slate.
Sure.
All 3, I know the other 2 candidates running, they're good friends. They're great mentors as well to many people. And they'll be great candidates as well, running for president, as well as our associate board members running this year as well. And a couple of the regional advisory board members for ASHE that are running again this year too. So I always tell people, vote early, vote often. I will say this, as an ASHE society as a whole, we do a horrible job of voting. We have 13,000 members and probably get 3,000 votes at that.
Oh, really? It's that low, huh?
Yeah. So I say to people, it only takes a couple clicks on your phone. or on your computer or at the ASHE conference. We just want people to try to vote, and that's going to be one of my main things I'm on stage talking about. At my speech at the ASHE Annual. The other reason why I wanted to kind of run again was it was a tough year, 2020. COVID sort of came out of the blue. A lot of us weren't sure how severe it was, or because the information coming out from the other side of the world was very sketchy, if anything at all.
Right.
And the next thing you know, myself and Chad Beebe were at the ASHE Conference in Orlando, and we were getting all these emails about stuff. And we're like, oh, let's see when we get back. And right after we got back, it was right before St. Patrick's Day, and then boom, on the 13th, everything shut down. That morning, helping open our command center, I'm on the phone with, for those who remember, Dale Wooden, who was a great mentor for many, a good friend. We had to make that tough decision of canceling the PDC, just because of the safety and the perception in mind for ASHE, but also for all the hospitals and our members. It wasn't all about money. It wasn't all about, trying to get the conference in. It was about the safety. And I find it ironic, I'm the first safety emergency manager for ASHE as president. Everyone else has always been facility directors or managers. So I kind of find it ironic that you have a safety emergency manager running ASHE during COVID, during an emergency.
Right.
Some things were meant to be.
Yeah, well, it was great that you were running it, but then, like you said, it went from 0 to 60. So come March, I just remember March 13th, because that's the day that my kid's school got canceled and all that. And so, you're starting out, you're in what, 2.5 months, and then the breaks go on. I just want to quickly, so Ed Leiden is a candidate, and is Mike Hatton as well?
Yes.
So Ed, obviously up here in New England with B.I. Leahy and Michael Hatton down there in Texas. So what did you think, Jeff, when it hit? And from your ASHE, think about, you have two roles. You're in a big city, and the big cities, there's obviously a focus on them, and then you're ASHE president. What are your initial thoughts, though, both as ASHE president and in your role at Penn on March 13th, when the world shuts down and the heightened goes through the roof?
So I've been lucky to be able to multitask in my head and think very quickly certain things and situations, and trying to be a leader here at the hospital and help to support our healthcare leadership. And I'm very lucky to have an incredible CEO and leadership team and many friends here at the hospital. For those who don't know, my hospital is very big.
What's your footprint there, Jeff?
So I have about 16,000 employees, roughly. We're about 8 to 9 million square feet. Large daycare as well. We're about 1,200 beds, but we only can staff 800 because of staff. When we opened up our new tower a couple years ago during COVID, and I'll talk about that in a second, but it's a large footprint. Plus, we have Children's Hospital next door, we're university, so University City has a lot of healthcare and universities around us. We're kind of surrounded on an island.
Is that CHOP that's next to you?
CHOP and the VA.
Oh, okay.
Right down the street. We support the VA and CHOP as well. So we all have doctors going back and forth like everyone else does stuff. But during COVID, during those times, canceling a lot of the in-person trainings that ASHE had, and try to keep that tempo up with our advisory board at the time, going virtual the first time with everybody. And we're trying to find a good platform to use at that time. But also, still trying to stay connected with our members too. So I'm a poli-sci history major. I love it. It comes naturally to me.
Yeah.
Just, like a lot of things. So I used, and you'll laugh, for those who are history majors, during World War II, Franklin Roosevelt did the fireside chats.
Yeah.
So I had my own little spin of my own chat. So I had a fireplace with a laptop, so you can't have a fireplace at work.
I remember when you started to do that. I was like, "That's very, very clever, very clever."
And I luckily had a good video crew here on site. They were slow, so they were able to help me whenever I needed. They're like a Johnny on the spot for me. And we did the videos, and the ASHE staff. I told Deanna Martin at the time, who took over for Dale, and Chad Beebe, and said, I'm going to do these little videos to try to help us out,
Yeah.
send quick messages, just to keep engaged with our members. It might be silly to some folks, but it's still a way to try to communicate
Yeah.
the best way possible, virtually, because again, we didn't have a virtual world at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, Jeff. You think back to that time. I mean, it's only 3 years ago, but it's a time before Zoom. It's a time before Teams. If you take that step back, I mean, when you started to do that, that's kind of at the forefront because all of this stuff didn't exist yet. It was all,
yeah, TikTok, Instagram, all of them didn't really take off until
yeah.
the pandemic.
Thank God. Yeah.
Yeah. So
We paid for that forever.
yeah, still going strong. But it was throughout the course of the year, we still we had our chapter leadership meetings, with the chapter presidents to try to help them out. Chad and the team and quite a few others. We started the FRAG, which is the Pandemic Resilience group for ASHE, to try to help people with ideas, codes, questions, construction, everything. And a lot of other associations like NFPA, ASHRAE, were turning towards us to help out because of our large footprint and knowledge of all of our ASHE members. And then try to have our local chapters still trying to have virtual meetings. It was a little late in the year, but to try to have them maintain their education up and their meetings, just stay connected with their members at the same time. So it was a huge pivot very quickly. That the ASHE staff did an incredible job helping keep the fire going, if you want to call it that, the boilers for the ASHE ship to keep growing and helping out all the chapters and all the hospitals too, because I've always been a big fan of trying to help out the smaller hospitals, the smaller facilities, because they don't have, I worked at smaller facilities where you're at, and sometimes we take for granted where we're at being a larger hospital or health system. And you tend to forget some of the smaller guys or girls that are like chief cook and bottle washers. They don't have all those resources. That's why I try to tell people to turn that, ASHE and chapters, and then I think it worked out well for everybody.
It's interesting. You talk about the, the focus on kind of those smaller hospitals. I did an episode for the network about decarbonization with Andy Wumavoya that'll be coming up. And Andy was talking a little bit about the impact of decarbonization on those smaller hospitals and those smaller community-based hospitals. And I just looking at like statistics, and I think there are roughly 7,500 or 7,300 hospitals in the United States, and like 1,389, 1,400 of them are critical access hospitals, those smaller. And I think so often those community-based and critical access, you forget about them, but you're obviously not forgetting about them because they're critical.
Now that comes from when I worked at BOC Gases, trying to help out. We had a lot of smaller customers, smaller vendors, and so they could always turn out to be larger customers down the road. So something I always battled with some of our sales guys. I said, you can take the big guys. I'll take the smaller guys because they'll work just as hard as the bigger guys.
Right.
So that's just growing up in that type of world at a very young age, learning that, from that type of aspect. So.
Yeah, you talked about your love of history, and I love it too. And you were a poli-sci major. I want to ask you, you're a poli-sci major in college, right? How did you find your way into a safety career? I know you went to the gases coming out of college, but how'd you transition to safety?
So through high school and college, I worked at the gas company.
Okay.
And then you laugh, at a young age, I was already full-time employee.
Were you really?
So the time I left BOC Gases, I already had like 10 years in the company at 24 to 25, because I knew how to do so much. So at the time when they were looking for safety managers, they were making a special group of regional managers for the whole country. And they were pulling certain people from different aspects of the business model lines for the company. I was on the distribution and sales side operations. They had somebody from our specialty gas division, someone from our atmospheric plant division, someone from the engineering division. There's one person from Canada, this girl Trish, they brought on. So they pulled this group of people in together to try to reformat and make it more dynamic because of all the different backgrounds. It worked. You know, and it comes down to proper training, giving them the tools to do it, the certifications, being certified as a safety inspector through DNV. So if you're given the tools and given the right aspect, it's up to the individual how they, you know, you know, excel. So, you know, I had 2/3 of the country basically was my region.
Wow.
Like 150 facilities that I governed over safety and training, inspecting and auditing and stuff like that. But again,
it's a pretty good career trajectory coming out of school for a 20-year-old, 20-something.
Yeah, but not, you know, it's just the poli sci helps to talk to people. You know, I would say the degree in BS. You know, I won't say the term, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you. What was, speaking of kind of BS, but and not talking to people, just looking back just a little bit at that COVID year, 2020, I think there was, ASHE went virtual that year. There was no in-person. Was that tough for a guy like you, who's naturally gregarious, connecting face-to-face type of a person? Now all of that is taken away. Did you do anything face-to-face after March? Anything on a broad scale after March 2020?
No, it wasn't really till 21, late 21,
Yeah.
when late 21 we had our fall conference here for our chapter, and I ran our golf outing later that year for the region, like I normally do, our charity golf outing. And then we went back into person for ASHE late 21.
Yeah.
For the fall conference. We didn't have the PDC. We did virtual. So late in 20, you know, we pivot and did our first virtual conference. And we, you know, Granger was a big help, you know, with their ideas because they were doing theirs virtually. And we kind of sat there and looked at theirs and tried to model some things with AHA at the same time. And it worked out very well. I thought it went well. You know, and then the following year we did the PDC virtually and then in person for the annual, as things starting to lighten up a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, but it was tough. You know, as you know, we do better by seeing people.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I always call the ASHE conferences our annual family reunions. You know, get to see people we haven't seen in a year or two, and you know, saying hi and you know, and buys because I'm going to end so quickly. You know.
Right. Yeah, and it was especially coming out of that, you know, that 2-year hiatus. So how much of what you actually wanted to implement as president, how much were you actually able to do? I don't want to say accomplish because you can't really accomplish if something's taken from you, but even from a perspective of trying to start things, how much were you able to do?
So a lot of stuff, but that's the reason why I'm running again. I always try to infuse some more safety emergency management into the ASHE world. Because there's a lot of, I always tell folks, there's a lot of members out there that are safety emergency managers, fire marshals, regulatory folks that don't have a home to a certain degree.
Yep.
You know, trying to make ASHE their permanent home. We're like nomads. You know, we kind of go around with this little bit of training or work. You know, basically a lot of stuff I had to put from me that myself and Chad and a couple of people we talked about on the back burner. It was basically just to maintain ASHE as a business and keep it going. Make sure we're still in line with our working with our board at the time as well, making sure we're in line with our strategic plan, making sure that we're still meeting the goals. What we did. We did a lot of regrouping for the year. At the end of the year, we looked at it and you know we were there. You know, as far as trying to maintain financially, as well as you know, just make sure we're still meeting our mission, our goals. I think we're ahead as ASHE as a whole compared to a lot of other associations nationally, where they weren't doing that quick pivot, and to be very nimble on trying to cut costs, also trying to make sure we're trying to meet the needs of our members, and also trying to be like a beacon of light for many. And a lot of people stepped up, you know, out of the blue, that normally would have because they saw it's an all hands on deck. It took everyone to try to help out. Just wasn't one or two people. It was you know, everyone naturally helped out, you know, as a family.
So it almost sounds like in a way your mindset transitions from I want to do and I want to accomplish kind of to a maintenance. Let's just keep the ship steady until we get through this because we don't know when it's going to end.
It's business continuity. It's kind of
Yeah.
ironic that we talk about it now nationally for business continuity plans for hospitals. Got a lot of new codes in the standards now for EM, for emergency management. And back then was just basically, how can we keep going the way we're going and just maintain, um, and be able to serve everybody at the same time, the right way. So,
Right, right. So as you look to the future, as you look to, if you're fortunate enough to be elected, what would you like to accomplish? What are your goals?
so again, some of my safety goals, I still save. Again, you only want to pick a few. If you try to pick like 12,
But
you're not be able to get everything done.
I want to ask you, here I am interrupting you, your goals are, and I'd like to say them, but I mean, you have a year where you're actually in office, right? So you can't, it's got to limit you somewhat, right?
And your year as president-elect, then
Yep.
you're president. So before that president-elect year, you're always trying to help support the initiatives of the current and past presidents, and then kind of flex a little bit to see where they're going with things, maintain what they try to do as a goal. You try, as in the back of your head for him or her. And I'm kind of excited. I'm real excited. There's a lot of women on the board now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very excited for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I told some friends of mine I expect to see the next 3 to 4 years or more women as ASHE presidents, which will be great for the association.
Yeah, you were the first safety guy, and the first woman would be the first woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll look forward towards that next year, next election.
Not this time.
Nope. Next election, we'll support everybody. But at the same time, trying to make sure infuse a couple 2, 3, 4 of your own goals in with that throughout the year. That way, one, you're not trying to be too taxing and too overbearing to the ASHE staff. And as well as the ASHE advisory board, because they have their own regions to help maintain and govern, and to support the strategic plan again, for things. Whoever it is, if it's me, Mike, or Ed, whoever's going to be elected, you have 3 great candidates. And then each of us, and they all been on the board before, they've seen it. But what I'm blessed with is being past president of ASHE, you can able to support all the initiatives,
Right.
not just a couple, and infuse a couple of your own goals if you can.
I've always thought, you don't have to answer this, I mean, jump in if you want, whether it's ASHE or really any organization, and granted, you're working full-time too, so it's kind of a balance, but 2 years would almost seem to be a better length of term, unless it's too long to serve, given kind of your role every day in your hospital organization. But it's almost like you gain that traction, but then you're gone. But then I guess it's a balance, right?
It's a balance. So I'll use the example after, towards the end of my term in 2020, a lot of people were trying to push to try to have me ask the advisory board and AHE leadership to have the extension.
Mm-hmm.
Have another year for everybody.
Yep.
I grew up 16 years, 17 years in ASHE. I know almost every ASHE president for this entire time. We've had some tough times, in the years past. We had a lot of financial downfalls nationally. Clinton was president, and we're able to, get through that. This was just another example of life where you have a pandemic, but you have to kind of take the higher road.
Yeah.
You have to think not just for yourself, but everything else. So if there's certain people in each member's mind or on the board thinking they may possibly run, and with work and the way joint commission schedules are, there's a teaching reasons why they sit there. So you have to kind of think of the higher road. Plus, it would have created a huge on the AHA leadership level, but I had to look on the higher road for everybody for the greater good. You're always able to run later on if you get that opportunity or asked to. And that's what, that's why I was coming back, to help run again. But, you always, the 2 years, a lot of the chapters can do that because it's local. But in the hindsight, if when you're ASHE president, because I didn't get a chance to do hardly anything at all like normal president would have done. There's a lot of travel. There's a lot of presentations to do nationally. That becomes taxing a lot on work. I've seen that over the years with some of the past presidents. especially, depending on what the platform is, how flexible they are, but also if they have, again, I'm blessed at work, they support this type of endeavors. There's a lot of local leaders I have at the hospital here who are national presidents of the pharmacy groups, nursing, hospital associations. So there's a lot of leaders here locally that support that. So I'm just one of many great leaders here that are able to do that. So you need to have work support that up front. If you don't have that, you're not going to do them to fail, but it'll be very tough to be effective, to enjoy yourself at the same time, meet great people along the way. So,
as you say, what was the reaction when you told your local leadership that you wanted to run again?
They said they were happy. CEO signed off on the form, as well as my boss said, whatever you need. They know how passionate, plus they know what, before I came here to Penn, a lot of these inner old school hospitals in this sections of the city or sections of the country always had local ties and local fire departments. It's just the way they used to have, for the fire marshals and stuff. And that's great. Don't get me wrong, and I have a lot of friends with the fire departments. I know the fire code guys, fire marshals very well, locally and outside the region. But you need to be expanding more dynamic. You need to have more contacts with our state ASJs as well as our Joint Commission reps or DMV reps. Whoever your hospital is, they see that you're bringing that back to the hospitals. Those key contacts and information. It's a win-win for them. Then that's priceless because having that connectivity and friendship and bond with those leaders means a lot when they're here. It makes a little feel at ease. And if they have questions to bounce things off, or they have questions for you to help them out, being part of ASHE, that's the benefit of having that connectivity with everybody.
What do you think, Jeff, in your opinion, or from your perspective, what do you think some of the challenges are for ASHE as an organization moving forward, kind of in this, in this new environment? Is it connectedness with folks who might be a little bit comfortable kind of being not disconnected, because you can't be disconnected in this field, but are used to be remote? What are some of the challenges coming out of COVID that you see for ASHE? Because it's got, we're talking about this, it's got one of the most passionate bases of membership that there is. I mean, I don't think you could find more passionate people, which is great, but what are some of the challenges you see moving forward?
One, I think the workforce. There's a lot of people retiring and they're not backfilling a lot of positions because two things: cost cutting, but also there's no one there. Across the board for a lot of fields, not just healthcare facility managers, but pharmacy, safety, security. You can go through the whole alphabet, and talk about every field. I use this analogy a lot. If you remember the movie Marvel's Endgame, when the blip, everyone disappeared.
Yes.
During COVID, it actually just really did happen. You have half the workforce just disappear or just said, you know what,
just like that.
I'm not working anymore.
Yeah.
And then they start to come back because they need to work. It hurts a lot of us because of the staff level training's not there, and that's where ASHE's trying to fix some of those voids. A lot of intermediate, middle management training programs and stuff that the teams are coming out with, and partner with different associations too. I think there's other associations that they're trying to rival a little bit of ASHE, but I think ASHE is so strong. I'm not too worried about them. They might be bright and shiny and new, like a new car smell, or a new electric car for sustainability. Want to go that route, but at the same time, ASHE's been here. This is the 60th year for their anniversary. There's why they've been around 60 years.
Yep.
And here for another 100 or more, because of the members, but also being more on a social media platform and basis, trying to connect with the members more quickly and trying to get that little piece of information out there. That's what they're also working on, the social media group.
Yeah.
Within ASHE, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. That's one of the things I'm working on. This one of our topics at the chapter leadership program this year that I run with our committee is, we're talking about social media and how do you stay connected with your local chapters, some best practices. I think this is going to be a couple of years talking points, because you look at the age group of some of our members, You know, they're not they're social savvy, but not enough to sit there to set up a whole program or a
Right.
platform.
Right.
You know, and maintain it. That's the key, to maintain it.
Yes.
If we let it stale, people forget about it. We'll move on
Yeah.
to something else.
Yeah, it's one thing to create it, and then like you say, you need to maintain it with content, and you just need to get those people coming back because you're fighting against so many other
Correct.
whether it's weather, sports, politics, it's all out there, and you got to stand out.
Yep, it's tough to maintain that presence. You need to
Yeah.
have someone who's dedicated to each chapter, like a social media committee, and be able to connect everything with that, and also to partner with your local chapters. I try to strive that you're not competing with each other with meetings or events. Yeah, I even talked to like IFMA, BOMA, some of our construction trade councils. That way, I have them all talking to each other now, because of, a lot of vendors, a lot of members go to all of them. So if you have something on the same day at the same time,
Right.
like you can only pick one, and the other ones are going to suffer.
Right.
So if you move it a day or two away from each other, that way you get a little buffer, a little breathing room. So it's just something to think about for people listening to this today, to try to partner with a lot of the other, if you have that around where you live, partner with the other associations. It's a good partnership. It'll be a win-win for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the thing, you talk about kind of establishing that social media and keeping ASHE moving forward in that vein. I think sometimes people want, whether it's instant gratification or just to be set up quickly. And I'm finding as we do this, things just take time. It's just the way things go. There's nothing that's, instant.
No, there's a lot of legwork. I call us the great Oz's, people like us.
You call it the great what?
Oz's, the people behind the screen, someone behind the curtain.
Right.
Things work, and when people come to things, it just seems seamless.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of man hour times behind the scenes at night, because again, there's a lot of us is all volunteer too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
how do you, Jeff, you talked about kind of, the workforce and people leaving. So you've got the challenge, both if you're the ASHE president, again, you got it from that perspective, but you also have it locally in your, in your role, corporate safety role at Penn. How are you guys dealing with that issue?
it's been tough. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Trying to compete with, and I'm not the boss of the health system. I have the corporate director I report to. I'm just based at our largest hospital here. But competing with other pays, not just other hospitals, but general industry too. We talked about depleting workforce. My field is a niche group. For codes, emergency management standards, it takes time to learn all that. And you're still learning. You're never going to know everything. And trying to compete with that is tough. We've lost quite a few people this past year and a half with better pays to a lot of larger companies, because there is nobody out there. The safety emergency management world, again, I've not seen pay levels like this so high since after phase of 9/11. Where they were just handing out grant money like it was Christmas time, or like shots at happy hour free, or free drinks, or penny drink night at the bar. Everything's just boom. But it's needed because they want to keep people. And I kind of tell people this, use this analogy. I like fantasy football a lot. So I have to tell people.
Who's your quarterback?
It varies. Allen's pretty good. Kurt's my main guy. But there's quite a few. It depends where I'm at in the draft order. And what type of league. But I tell some of our HR directors and managers, you have to pay to play anymore. The old days of traditional mindset of being proud to work at a hospital is still there, but it's not a number one driving factor. That's more of like a 20th or 30th driving factor now. There's benefits, there's pay, there's other things, there's vacation time, there's other things, and they're my time to be able to work from home, to be able to flex that, to keep them there. So I always tell them, like, you have to pay to play to keep your staff there, to keep your quarterback, your running back, your receivers, your linemen, your defense, your special teams. What are you going to pay them to keep up with the national standard?
Right.
A lot of hospitals don't want to do that,
right.
Because they're really slow for retention.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of facilities behind the eight ball with that, I think, nationally.
I think you're right. I find it, when we do the recruiting stuff, I think a lot of organizations have been slow to change. And I don't know that it's a criticism because, again, everything went on steroids in March 2020, and then we came out of COVID and, you're shooting to the moon. But I think organizations have been a little bit slow to react
Mhm.
to the changing environment. Okay, it's like you just said, Jeff, what can you do? If I can't get you to the top of the scale, what can I do to keep you here?
Yep.
And you just need to readjust that thinking.
Yep. And it's, I always tell some people, the grass is always greener. You have to think about,
Yeah.
um, I didn't have a lot of people to talk about like those jobs growing up. A lot of people come to me for advice. I try to tell them, look at all the angles, not just me, but, there was a lot of nurses that went to other hospitals locally. Now they're back.
Yeah. You see it all the time. You
The
do.
researchers weren't there, but, it's a little different in my industry where, um, there's not a lot of people out there. Um,
Right.
to try to recruit is very tough, especially if you're trying to people across the country. Um, and plus the age group, a lot of the safety emergency managers in those positions were the baby boomers or older Gen Xers. Where now after COVID, they hit a point where it's I'm done.
Yeah.
And that's why we have such a huge vacuum now nationally for a lot of positions. I've seen FEMA jobs, the pays are insane because there's no one there.
Right. Right. Yeah. I was reading a article yesterday in Modern Healthcare, and they were talking about at the executive level, the C level, but it's the same thing there as it is in facilities management. There's retirement, burnout, and people leaving to go to other industries because of pay and or work-life balance. So
Yeah,
it's, as you say, it's really universal, and there's not one thing you can do. It's kind of multiple steps, as opposed to, it's not going to be just about the pay.
yeah, um,
Um,
yeah, exactly.
so as we're coming up to the end of our time with Jeff Henne, Jeff, Corporate Safety and Emergency Manager for University of Pennsylvania, also running for ASHE President in 2023. Jeff, what did you take out of your year as president in 2020, ASHE President? What did you take out of that experience that you would be able to apply to this experience should you be elected president once again? Is there any? Well, I'm sure there is something. What is
Um,
it?
um, one again, I felt blessed being elected,
Yeah.
nationally from everybody. I'm still connected with so many people. If I'm elected again, I'll be blessed to be president again. Be only the second time someone's elected president. Tom Skipper was another one from California.
Okay, I was going to ask you who's
He was
first.
he was elected twice many years ago. But he's still very active in ASHE. He's a great mentor for many. Um, but still having that connectivity. A lot of our past presidents, with Dave Dejanay, Skip Taylor. There's so many people. Mark Kennedy, being involved, um, being able to meet in person, be able to travel. Again, that's one of the things I missed.
Yeah.
To go to a lot, going around a lot of the chapters, some of our national programs, being the face of ASHE again, working with our advisory board and the great ASHE staff. Be able to work with them in person. We missed a lot of that during that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So, and not just me, but a lot of stuff in general for everybody. I'm not trying to be selfish. There's a lot of stuff we all missed. We won't get it back. Um,
Right.
but they're good memories. They're good lessons learned that whole entire time. Throughout the facility, how to flex, how to maintain, policy procedures, training, the workforce we developed, family and friendship at the same time within the hospitals and nationally, within the ASHE and some of our other associations, other partners. So I think, being on that level again, the national stage would be great. If I don't get it, it was meant to be, it was a good run.
Yep.
But either way, you're going to have one good ASHE president coming out of this election. Hope it's me, but Mike and Ed are great friends and mentors as well. But again, the main thing is, I'll say this again: vote.
Yeah. I was
Vote.
so only you're saying only three out of 13,000, 3,000 out of 13,000 roughly vote.
Yeah, between 3,000 and 4,000 roughly. I think I saw as high as 5 many, many, many years ago. but still, that's a small fraction.
Why do
It's
you
like,
think? Why do you think that is? Well, I guess we see it reflected nationally as well, but why do you think that is?
I just think it's all good questions. I mean, it's just people trying to find the time. People forget.
Yeah,
And I'm not just making up some excuses, but we get a ton of emails. That's why we're finally bringing it back at the ASHE Annual because we
yeah,
have that captured audience there.
right.
Something a couple of us have tried to push for years. We did it in Boston when Dave was running, when Dave was president. Was it 10, 11 years ago, roughly? About back before we last time we were in Boston.
Yeah,
It's just trying to, again, the social media piece, try to push that out there. And I think a lot of local chapters need to make sure they push those emails out to their members. Because the local chapters, again, are the strongest word.
right.
They're like the Paul Revere's for us. I use that term a lot with being a history major again. Like
Yeah,
our social business partners are Paul Revere's. They can go from facility to facility to help support ASHE and the chapters. We can't because we're working every day.
yeah,
But,
right.
but if you have them as they have your back as a chapter nationally, they can go around and help support that message.
Yeah. I know that my family makes fun of me a lot. People make fun of you a lot when you like history, especially when you tie things to historical. But we're not I'm not an engineer, but the ability to use history through every part of your life and weave it back to something, it's very it's very worthwhile and something we're losing.
Oh yeah.
But you bring that up and automatically you can connect to that. I can connect to Paul. You got to be the Paul Revere's telling people to vote. That's very tangible.
It's the word of mouth is the strongest message. You can email blast all you want, but
Yeah.
if you don't have those little triggers in your mind, you're not going to get.
Especially for this group of people that isn't always in front of their computer. I mean, you're trying to reach a workforce that's by their nature, they're out there. They're not sitting.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
Well, Jeff Henne, I want to thank you for your time this morning and wish you well in the election. And we'll see you next month out in San Antonio.
Yeah, I look forward towards seeing at your booth, booth 438.
Thank you.
So for those who remember, please visit him. But thanks for your time today. Thank you, everybody.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you all for watching the Healthcare Facilities Network. We will be back with a future episode. Thank you for watching this episode of the Healthcare Facilities Network. Please give this episode a like, as it really does make a difference in helping to promote the discipline of healthcare facilities management.